The rain lashed mercilessly against the hospital windows that night, each drop sounding like the echo of a broken dream. In the corner of the dimly lit private suite, a young girl sat in her wheelchair, her once vibrant eyes dulled by months of despair. Her name was Emily Carter, the only daughter of Richard Carter, a powerful CEO known for his empire of wealth and influence. But none of his billions, none of his connections, none of his boardroom victories could save Emily from the cruel twist of fate that left her paralyzed from the waist down after a devastating car accident. Emily had been a bright soul once. She loved horseback riding, music, and the kind of laughter that made people forget the world for a moment. But now, her days were filled with silence, pain, and hopelessness. She no longer looked in the mirror, no longer cared to dress up, no longer asked about her friends who slowly drifted away when visits grew too heavy with pity. To her, life had ended the day her legs stopped working. She would stare blankly at the ceiling for hours, her heart silently screaming a question she never dared to voice aloud: why me? And while Emily suffered quietly, her father, Richard, carried his torment differently. He wore his grief like armor, throwing himself deeper into work, believing power could shield him from helplessness. But every night, when the world thought the mighty CEO was untouchable, he would sit alone in his office, a glass of whiskey in hand, tears he never let anyone see carving lines down his face. He could conquer corporations, but he could not mend his daughter's broken spirit. That helplessness was killing him more than her condition ever could. And yet, fate had other plans. Before we continue, I want to pause for a moment. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the miracles that can bloom from the unlikeliest of places, then please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Royal Stories. Every story we share here is a reminder that hope is never truly lost, and your support helps keep these stories alive for hearts around the world. Now, let us return to Emily's journey. One ordinary morning, when the Carter estate was as silent and heavy as ever, something unusual happened. The new physical therapy center Richard had invested in was opening that day, and he insisted Emily attend the first session. She refused, of course. She said therapy was pointless. But Richard begged her, not as a CEO, not as a man of pride, but as a desperate father pleading with the only person he loved more than life itself. With a sigh of defeat, Emily agreed to go, only to make him stop looking at her with those broken eyes. That day, in the brightly lit therapy room, she first met Daniel Hayes. Daniel was nothing like the polished, cold professionals Emily was used to. He was a single father in his late 30s, tall, with kind brown eyes that carried both exhaustion and warmth. His clothes were simple: a plain shirt, worn sneakers, and a smile that didn't feel forced. He wasn't rich. He wasn't from Emily's world of privilege. He was simply a man who had known his share of struggles and carried them with quiet dignity. He introduced himself softly, explaining that he would be helping with her rehabilitation. Emily barely looked at him, her voice icy as she muttered, "It won't work." Nothing ever does. Most therapists would have brushed past her bitterness, but Daniel didn't. He crouched to her level, met her eyes, and simply whispered, "It's okay to feel that way. But can I believe for you until you're ready to believe again?" That single sentence, that whisper, landed differently. Emily couldn't explain why, but something inside her stirred. It wasn't hope yet, just a faint spark, like a flicker of light in a cave too deep to escape. Over the next weeks, Daniel showed up not just as a therapist but as a human being who truly cared. He didn't push her harshly. Instead, he reminded her gently of the strength she still carried. When her arms trembled lifting weights, he told her that courage wasn't in never falling, but in showing up despite fear. When she cried out of frustration, he didn't tell her to be strong. He let her cry, then whispered words that slowly patched her spirit, one step at a time. One breath at a time. You're allowed to be broken and brave at the same time. Slowly, Emily found herself waiting for his visits. She hated to admit it, but his presence soothed her storm. She even began asking about his life. That's when she learned he had a little daughter named Lily, just 8 years old. Her mother had left years ago, leaving Daniel to raise her alone. Money was tight, and life was a struggle, but Lily was his reason to keep going. One afternoon, Daniel brought Lily with him to the therapy center. The little girl, with golden curls and eyes full of curiosity, ran up to Emily without hesitation. She didn't see a paralyzed girl in a wheelchair. She saw someone new to befriend. Lily placed a tiny flower she had picked outside into Emily's hand and said, "You're pretty. Do you want to be my friend?" For the first time in months, Emily laughed, a real laugh that startled even herself. Something about Lily's innocence, her lack of pity, cracked the wall Emily had built around her heart. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Emily's body was healing little by little, but more importantly, her spirit was rising. She began practicing with determination. She rediscovered the joy of painting. She even started going out into the garden again, her wheelchair rolling over the stone paths where she used to walk. She wasn't healed yet, but she was living again. And at the center of her transformation were Daniel's whispers and Lily's innocent friendship. Richard Carter noticed the change too. At first, he was skeptical of Daniel. What did this modest man know of his world? But when he saw his daughter smile again, when he saw the glow of life return to her face, Richard's hardened heart softened. For the first time, he realized money had never been the answer. Love, patience, and kindness were. One unforgettable evening, during a difficult session, Emily broke down. The exercises were hard, her legs felt like dead weight. She screamed, "I'll never walk again." Tears streamed down her face as she collapsed forward. Daniel caught her, steadying her trembling body. And then, leaning close, he whispered the same words he had told her that very first day, "Then let me believe for you until you can." That whisper changed everything. Emily looked at him through her tears and, for the first time, didn't feel like a burden. She felt seen, she felt loved, and that love gave her the courage to try again. Months later, Emily took her first steps with assistance. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't magical, it was shaky, painful, and slow. But to her, it was the greatest victory she had ever known. She cried in her father's arms that night, and Richard, the mighty CEO, wept like a child, thanking Daniel silently for giving his daughter back her hope. Emily's story became one of resilience, not tragedy. She still had a long journey ahead, but she was no longer the girl who stared blankly at ceilings, waiting for life to end. She was alive again, painting, laughing, dreaming, all because a single dad whispered hope into her darkest hours. And maybe, just maybe, Emily found something even deeper growing in her heart. A gratitude, a bond, and perhaps even the tender beginnings of love for the man who had reminded her that broken things could still be beautiful. If this story touched your heart, if it made you believe in the power of kindness, patience, and the whispers that heal, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who might need hope, and subscribe to Royal Stories. Every gesture of support helps us spread more light into a world that so often feels dark. And before we end, here's a special request. Comment down below with the words, "Hope lives here." Let's fill the comments with light and remind each other that no matter how broken life may feel, hope is always closer than we think.